Catastrophe sans précédent dans tous les pays limitrophes de l'océan Indien.
The tsunami toll is now reaching levels no heart or mind can truly comprehend.
Les conséquences des raz-de-marée qui ont frappé plusieurs pays d'Asie du Sud-Est.
Catastrophe is unfolding in southern Asia right now. The strongest earthquake in 4 decades.
A tragedy of staggering proportions.
On December 26, 2004, at 7:58 local time, the world witnessed a geophysical event of such magnitude that it literally altered the physical properties of our planet. Known to the scientific community as the Sumatra Andaman earthquake, it began with a magnitude revised by later studies to be between 9.1 and 9.3. According to the records of 2004 Indian Ocean Earthquake and Tsunami article on Wikipedia, this was the third or fourth largest earthquake ever recorded and featured the longest fault rupture in history, spanning up to 1,300 kilometers, the distance from London to Rome. To understand the gravity of this event, we must look at the reason behind it. The disaster originated as a subduction zone, where the Indian plate slides beneath the overriding Burma plate at the Sumatra Trench. This was a megathrust earthquake occurring when years of accumulated tectonic stress were released in a matter of minutes. The slip did not happen all at once. According to the seismographic data, it occurred in 2 distinct phases. The first phase involved a rupture 400 kilometers long and 100 kilometers wide, 30 kilometers beneath the seabed of the coast of Aceh. After a pause of about 100 seconds, the rupture continued northward toward the Andaman and Nicobar Islands at a very slow speed. The physical reason the tsunami was so deadly was the vertical displacement of the seafloor. The seabed rose by several meters along the fault line, displacing an estimated 30 cubic kilometers of water. The energy release was equivalent to 1.1 times 10 raised to the power of 17 joules, enough to cause the entire planet to vibrate by 10 millimeters. NASA models later confirmed that this shift of mass shortened the length of a day by 2.68 microseconds and caused the Earth to wobble on its axis up to 60 millimeters. The resulting waves radiated outward with enough energy to detect as far as Mexico and the Arctic. But on the coastlines of Indian Ocean, the impact was visceral. According to the Parliament of Australia's background report, the final death toll reached an estimate of 227,898 to 230,000 lives. In Aceh, Indonesia, which was closest to the epicenter, waves reached a maximum run-up height of 51 meters, nearly 17 stories high. The social stratification of this tragedy was heart-wrenching. Relief agencies reported that 1/3 of the deaths were children, who lacked the physical strength to resist the water. Furthermore, as noted in the Seeger Center Asia papers, women were significantly more likely to die than men, with ratios as high as 3:1 in many villages. This happened because many women were waiting on the beaches for fishing boats to return or were slowed down by the traditional clothing while trying to flee. Beyond the human toll, 1.7 million people were displaced and the environment was devastated. Freshwater aquifers and arable land were poisoned by salt water for years. What followed was the Seeger Center's 1-year report, described as most generous and immediately funded relief effort ever. The international community raised a staggering $13.5 to $14 billion. A unique feature of this response, highlighted in the Oxfam 10 years on report, was that 40% of these funds, over $6.25 billion, came from private individuals and corporations. In the UK alone, 80% of the households contributed to a record-breaking appeal. However, this crisis of abundance led to what experts call a second tsunami of organizational chaos. Because there was no centralized coordination system at the time, the arrival of hundreds of agencies created a competitive environment. In Aceh alone, more than 200 NGOs arrived, leading to what sources call flag planting, competing for visibility rather than collaborating. This resulted in massive duplication of efforts. For instance, thousands of fishing boats were provided that were unsuited for local waters or given to people who had never fished, disrupting local ecosystems. Mismanagement was also found at the government level. Auditor General's report from Sri Lanka found that by July 2005, only 11.2% of foreign aid for housing had been spent, while 29% of aid containers sat uncleared in customs. There were even cases of misappropriation where government funds were paid to families completely unaffected by the disaster. A key ethical lesson comes from the MSF case study found in the Global Policy Forum archives. Within a week of the disaster, MSF took the rare step of asking donors to stop sending money for the tsunami. They had received 110 million euros, far exceeding their projected need of 25 million euros. MSF argued that continuing to accept restricted funds for a crisis where needs were already met was dishonest, while other forgotten crises, like those in Sudan and Niger, were starving for resources. This highlighted a massive flaw in global aid. The public often gives based on media coverage, not actual humanitarian assessments. So how could this have been managed differently? To help everyone properly, we need a total overhaul of the humanitarian system. Number 1. Systemic coordination. As a direct result of these failures, the UN formally rolled out the cluster approach in 2005. This system organizes aid into sectors like water, sanitation, and hygiene, or logistics, each with a designated lead agency to prevent a duplication and act as the provider of last resort. Number 2. Fund allocation strategy. Research from the Overseas Development Institute shows that cash transfers were superior to in-kind goods. Giving survivors cash empowers them to prioritize their own needs and support local markets, which is far more efficient than shipping in unneeded supplies. Number 3. Donor management. This is an aspect that requires deep investment. We must educate the public to provide unearmarked or general emergency funds. This allows experts to move money based on humanitarian assessments rather than media pressure. Today, apps like ZenDonor.com would revolutionize this process. Such platforms help NGOs manage donor relations with real-time data, ensuring that every dollar is tracked and providing the transparency and traceability that the World Bank and ALNAP identified as essential for effective recovery. Finally, we must look at prevention. In 2004, there was no tsunami warning systems in the Indian Ocean. If people in Somalia who were hit 7 hours after the quake had been warned, thousands of lives could have been saved. To fix this, the Indian Ocean Tsunami warning system was made active in 2006, utilizing dart buoys and seismographic stations to provide alerts within minutes. We also saw the success of RALAS projects in Aceh, which restored land rights through community-driven mapping, specifically protecting the rights of widows and orphans. This is the essence of localization. The 2016 Grand Bargain commitment to provide 25% of all funding directly to local responders. The legacy of the 2004 tsunami is one of building back better. We cannot stop the earth from shaking, but by choosing coordination over competition and transparency over chaos, we ensure that the global generosity reaches those who actually need it. To help everyone properly, we must invest in donor management. This is an area not fully explored in our historical resources, but from a modern perspective. It involves educating the public to provide unearmarked or general emergency funds. This allows experts to allocate money where the need is great rather than where the media coverage is most intense. Ultimately, the goal is localization. As the ALNAP 20 years later commentary concludes, the most effective responders were the local communities who were there in the first minutes. Future aid must focus on the Grand Bargain, the 2016 commitment to provide 25% of all humanitarian funding directly to locals and national actors. The 2004 tsunami taught us that while the world's heart is big, our systems must be smarter. By investing in coordination, flexible funding, and modern management tools, we can ensure that the next time the earth shakes, our response is as unified as the waves are destructive. This has been Beyond the Cause with ZenDonor, and my name is Alan, and we are providing 1 year free ZenDonor access for the first 10 people who click the link right in the description. That's it for today's episode of Going Beyond the Cause. See you next time.